So, good morning, everybody. This is Juliana Tavares. Today, we're going to have a little workshop or class about how to understand the different tones in your mind. I want to introduce myself before. So, people that are new in the group and haven't been around since the beginning, my name is Juliana Tavares. I'm originally from Colombia. I've been working as a consultant since 2005. And in 2018, after I think what I call a breakthrough, I decided to quit my corporate America consulting job and decided to do this independently because I decided that I didn't want to have that life and that nobody has to settle for whatever they do or chose in a wrong way. And then these last three years and a half, I've been helping people around the world to identify their purpose, to change their lives, to transform the reality, and to live lighter lives. So that's what I do. I also help companies, CEOs, entrepreneurs to identify also those voices in their heads so they can have better businesses, better results, better projects, etc. So it's like a combination between the inner work and the business world as well. And so today, this little workshop is to share with you the importance of understanding the different voices we have in our mind. We are like broke inside, and the idea of this lifetime, for me, one of the main purposes and goals of every human being working on this planet is to integrate that different pieces and broken pieces and integrated in a whole human being. Is there where we find our purpose, our genius, our superpowers. So that's why I want to share with you today. I'm preparing a presentation. I'm going to be switching from me and the presentation. I like visual effects, as I call it, for people to understand better. When we talk about the mind, it's important to be visual so we can understand better and create better ideas in our images and ideas in our minds. Okay, so whatever I'm gonna share with you right now is my understanding of the psyche. It has a little bit of Buddhism inside, also a little of Carl Jung teachings together, but everyone can change this interpretation with different words, depending on what they believe in or their background is. This is not like to set in stone how it is and the final truth, but an interpretation of the human psyche that will help us to understand ourselves better. So I'm gonna start sharing with you my screen. Okay. So why is important to identify the different voices or the different tones in the energetics of our mind is because it will help us to identify what we really are. We've been programmed, to call it like that, with the environment, the surroundings, the culture, the family beliefs we have, but not necessarily that is what we are. So there is a lot of baggage that doesn't really belong to ourselves, to who we are. So the idea is to start identifying what of those ideas, beliefs, thoughts don't really belong to us, but belong to our ancestors, to our culture, to our parents, and to the child that is not here anymore. So it's trying to identify what we don't need anymore in our lives and embrace what we really are. The other thing is to align what we desire with our actions. So our mind is fragmented, as I said, so there's a lot of conflict inside. And sometimes we want something, but we do the opposite. Or sometimes we don't really know what we want, so we act as like in this automatic mode. So the idea of understanding these voices is to align what we do with what we want. The other is start taking actions without fear, or take actions because sometimes we don't even act. We are paralyzed by the overwhelmed of this world, and we don't do anything. We're just there, breathing, living in this robotic continuance. So the idea is to start taking action. When we understand the truth, our minds, is easier to know when to act and what to do. The other is to decrease stress and anxiety. The main reason people suffer from stress, from anxiety, is because what they do every day is not aligned with what they really are. So they are doing things because that's what the script told them to do. This is the path to success. This is what the world told them to be. So as you are like acting every day in something that you are not, there is a tension against what your soul desires versus what you do. So at the moment that you start understanding who's talking to you, in which way they're talking, the tone of that conversation, you will start to identify exactly what you really want to do. And that tension and stress releases. The other thing is also to find your life purpose. As we grew in this materialistic world where the only purpose is to create profit and have a retirement, which is not the real purpose of the human soul, it's very hard to see what is that our soul really wants. So the idea of understanding those voices is also to identify why I am here. What is this true calling that I have? Also, when you understand the voices inside your head and the tone, the energetics, you understand also why you act in certain ways. Sometimes we have behaviors and reactions that we don't really like and we disapprove from ourselves. So we start understanding also why we're acting the way we're acting. And as I said before, is also to identify what is this inner power, what is that we naturally do and we naturally love and we naturally can do. Is our inner power that is already there, what we have been hiding because it wasn't in the script that was taught by our school, parents, etc. Why is this important? Why this kind of classes, understanding why all this theory I'm going to teach you is important is most of the people that are right here right now had a program or an operating system, it's better than operating systems, that needs to be told certain things, to start believing, to start changing. I would say that before it was easy only by meditating, doing yoga, practicing rituals, and spirituality was enough because our minds were not as polluted as they are right now. Right now, there is a lot of information, and right now our brains need this external information, this conscious information for us to facilitate the healing, the personal growth. So this is important. These words, what you're seeing here right now, is important for your brain to start understanding and assimilating that knowledge. Sometimes yoga and meditating is not enough, because we are seen in this conflict of the 3D world and what to do, where to do my daily life. So sometimes we need to attack our psyche in both ways, from this conscious way with theory and teachings and reading books and watching lives like this, or also in the subconscious way, which is the healing, the spirituality, the meditation, the yoga. So it's like attacking our psyche from two different places. So the healing is faster and the transformation is faster and with less conflict. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the psyche. As I said before, it's fragmented, and it depends on what we believe in. As I told you before, this is a little of Buddhism and Carl Jung theories. Okay, from others in other beliefs, they may believe that the psyche is different, has different archetypes, different structure. But I'm gonna explain later what and how it works. For example, in our mind, we have the conscious and the unconscious. I'm gonna go deeper. We have consciousness, which is for me the spirit, the chi, the energy. This is pure action. Is that thing, the little energy that motivates us, that creates life itself. We have the ego, we have the soul, we have the shadow. And if there is shadow, it's because there is also light. We have also the archetypes that are more detailed, energetic characteristics that we have in our minds. And as I told you before, the importance of these concepts is to help our mind to understand better and to know ourselves better. So as I said before, we have the conscious and the unconscious, okay? In psychology, they say that 10% is conscious. So we are actually conscious of what is happening in our mind. The thoughts, the actions, the movement, the decisions, the personality, the reactions is only 10% conscious and 90% unconscious. This means that most of the time we don't even understand why we are reacting to something. We don't even understand why are we sad about something. We don't really understand why we say certain things. It's 10 and 90%. I do believe in the One Life to Live philosophy that actually that conscious percentage is smaller. I believe it's around 1%, because the body itself is also part of the mind. The body keeps a lot of information. The information is not only in the brain, it's in every little part of our body. Our DNA, our heart, our different chakras, etc. So I believe that what we do consciously is much more or less. That's why it's so important, the self-knowledge part, because that helps us to move more portions of the unconsciousness into the consciousness and understand why we're here and who we really are. For you also to understand, like the mind has around 40,000 thoughts per day. So that means that from all of those thoughts, only 1% were totally aware of. So if I ask you today, what were your main thoughts yesterday, you wouldn't remember more than 100 thoughts, but it happened much more than that. So to clarify better the difference between conscious and unconsciousness and subconscious, some people differentiate both unconscious and subconscious. I'm going to put it in the same package for them to get more confused. So consciousness is the things we're aware of when we put reason, we use math, we are mindful of our movements, we're mindful of our thoughts, we're mindful of our feelings. The subconscious, on the other hand, is what I'm not thinking at the moment, but it's in our like background working. The things I forgot that I knew at some point in, for example, my childhood, or all the things that I absorbed when I was in school, but is no longer there. I totally forgot. It's still there in our subconscious. Everything that I do involuntary, like reactions, is also where we storage our memories, the things that happened, the experiences we've had. It's also where we go and look for information if we want to remember something. The subconscious and conscious also is the function of the body. Like everything is working right now. The heart, the lungs, the stomach, the cells, all that is just automatic how our body works. All that is happening right now is information happening all over the body. We are not conscious of it, but it's happening. Our habits, our beliefs, our doubts, our feelings, everything that happened in our history as a person is stored in our subconscious mind, and also produces like our personality, our behavior is all there written in our mind. This is important to understand, because when we don't understand that most of what we're not aware of, there is not going to be change. There is not going to be like this need of knowing who we are. There is not going to be this necessity of understanding where we're coming from or where we want to go, because we believe that all it is what we see, but it's not. There is a lot of things that are inside that if we don't know, we're going to keep believing that it's something missing, that is something else, that I need something else to be complete, that I need to do something extraordinary to be happy. So that's why it's important to start understanding the difference between the both and making as much as we can the unconscious conscious. Okay, so I'm gonna go about ego. The ego is what starts to be formed in the first years of our life. It develops through our experiences with the external world. When we just arrive to this planet, there is no ego at all. It's the pure nature of our soul, of who we are, from the hardware to everything, all our potentiality, our personality, everything is there. But then when we start growing, little programs about our society and culture start to be part of our psyche too. Our name, our profession, our last names, our religion, our customs, our nationality, all of that starts to be part of that system too. And that, all the things that are like additional to who we are already, is what we call ego. It's also, it has to do a lot of what is moral or unmoral judgments, because that's so cultural. The things we believe is good or wrong depends on the culture. So that also is part of the ego. It is very important because it's the relationship. It manages the relationship between our inner selves and the external world. Okay. If we don't understand the ego, it gives us a wrong idea of what we are. And we need to understand that we are more than this persona, this entity that the society created. When we are not aware of the presence of the ego, our life is shallow, is superficial, is just materialistic, is only in this 3D world. And we also vibrate in the frequency of our surroundings. For example, if I was born in a very poor, dangerous neighborhood, my vibration on all my system is going to be at the same level, and I won't have the opportunity to move forward, to live that, to have wealth, or to be in safer environments, because I don't know anything else. That's why it's important to acknowledge the ego exists, because it let us know that we can rebuild that part, we can rebuild that ego, reshape it to fit more who we really are. It's very easy to identify, even though there are a lot of people that don't understand the ego and don't understand that it's like a fake version of what they are. It's very easy to identify because it's what we believe we are, you know, the 3D world, and what we interact with it. Our jobs, for example, is part of our ego. We sometimes feel like we are that part, like that professional. We are not, but it's easy to see. It's very easy to see. Our political party is also part of our ego. We believe we are that. Our love for our soccer team is also part of our ego. Ego creates attachment to the world. It believes that happiness resides in the things that are outside our inner self. And also it's easy to identify because normally the ego speaks in thoughts, mere ideas, concepts. That's the language of the ego. What is false about the ego is that some people believe that we need to get rid of the ego, but that's something that's impossible. We need the ego to live. We need the ego to plan. We need the ego to go to a restaurant and order the menu. We need the ego to go to our jobs. We need the ego to be in contact with our families. So it's impossible to get rid of your ego. You can shape it, and you can probably understand its function and not let your life be ruled by it. The other thing that people believe and misunderstand about the ego is they believe that it's dark, that it's negative, that is punishing you, which is false. It's just part of the energetics of the human experience. Some people believe that also that decisions from ego are wrong. And if I want to celebrate my life, or I feel proud of me, or etc., that's ego, but it's not. Ego is not like hate or self-love. It's just an entity that is in our minds that help us to surface. And then it comes the shadow. The shadow, a difference from the ego, is not as easy as identified because it's hidden in our subconscious. It's not part of our consciousness as the ego is. It also starts developing in the first years of our lives, but it hides behind. It's hidden and we ignore it because sometimes it feels shameful or painful, according to what society is telling me. So if society is telling me that something is good and is punishing me for something that is bad or something that negative happened to me, I will hide that unconsciously and put it in a way that I don't see it anymore, because I don't want to be judged by society. Is where our repressed feelings are, is where the pain we absorb, and we don't want people to know our weaknesses, our inner conflicts, and the things that we don't like about ourselves, we put in a side, and we don't want to look at it because it's shameful and it's painful. That's the shadow, and it may be huge, and it's there in our subconscious mind, sometimes managing our life, letting control our decision behind to what we really want in our lives. Why the shadow is important? Because the shadow helps us to identify what is our main pain points. Where is the pain that we hold in our lives that probably we don't need anymore? When you don't understand your shadow, it gives you a fake idea about your emotions and about what you're feeling, how you're feeling. So that's why it's important to integrate the shadow as part of your psyche and understand it very well, because you're gonna start believing that you like certain things, love certain things, dislike certain others, but it's not true. You just put it aside. You just, for example, you may love dogs, but a dog was very mean to you when you were a kid, and you just put that aside and you believe you hate dogs, but actually you love them. It's part of your soul, or part of you, what you really are. But the fear of that experience in the past, it put that category of dogs like in something negative. So if you don't understand the shadow, your shadow, you're gonna leave behind many things that are part of you, who you are, that you are just denying. When we are not aware of this presence of the shadow, we also trying to live according to other people's opinions. We have low self-esteem, we fear the future, and we're victims of the universe, like the universe was against us. As I said at the beginning, it's not easy to identify. A different from the ego is that the shadow communicates with you through feelings, through emotions, through sensations, okay? Through triggers. When you're triggered, it's because there is something that your shadow is trying to tell you. But the problem is, like, sometimes, as we don't know ourselves, as we don't know our psyche, what or who we really are, our ego enters and tries to interpret it like that feeling. And sometimes the interpretation of the ego is not aligned to the truth. So there is a lot of lies between what the feeling is trying to tell you and what the ego is trying to interpret it. Okay, is another way to identify the shadow is, and compare it to the ego, is that when you speak from your ego, as is the mask you put to be accepted in society, it's easy to speak the words of your ego, to speak it loud, okay? You will say it loud. But from the contrary, the shadow are those conversations you have only with yourself, and that probably you will never say, probably to your therapist or to your coach or to yourself, or never. You will be probably die with that idea, the thought, that feeling, the sensation. You won't speak it. So that's another way to understand, identify when you are receiving information from your ego, because it's easy to say, why not? But when it's from your shadow, it's the things that you will never say loud. What is something that is not like true about the shadow is that you need it to live, survive. Jung says that where there is light, there has to be shadow, that you need always to live with it. but the idea is actually to get rid of the shadow as much as you can. If you really want to have like an exceptional life, find your genius, find your purpose, the less shadow you have, the better. Because sometimes the shadow is the thing that is holding you back and don't let you act to what you really want. The shadow is not the same as the dark. I won't talk about the dark today, but there are different concepts. The shadow is not about immoral things. It's not about morality. The things that are the shadow are not necessarily moral or immoral. So it has nothing to do with what is good or what is wrong. It's only to what we as a persona, as an individual believe is wrong, bad, or the conflicts we have with ourselves. So this little depiction I have here is to understand a little bit how they interact, the ego, the shadow, and the soul. The soul is our real self, who we really are. So as I said, we come to this world with the pure nature of who we really are, and the ego starts building, and with the ego, the shadow is behind. And our consciousness, our spirit, is paying attention to certain points of our psyche. So normally, as we're in this materialistic world, the consciousness is just focusing on the ego, okay? And it doesn't see to who you really are. It's impossible because it only sees ego, okay? When you start working and you start doing inner work, you may start seeing parts of your soul through your ego. You start identifying those programs that are not really you, those programs that don't belong to you, those programs that belong to the religion, but you really don't follow that religion, or the programs that are from your parents, the fears that are from your grandfather. So you start seeing through who you really are through your ego, and probably you can see your soul and your real self, okay? But the idea is to see in a way that we can go beyond the ego, transcend it, not eliminate the ego as some people believe, but transcend it, so we can face our shadow and eliminate it as much as we can, so we can have a vision of both very clear, of the ego and soul. And that's the idea when we want to start planning our lives. Like, what is that I need to change, what I need to act, what I need to reshape from my ego, what is the labels that I need to change, so it's more aligned to my real selves. And the shadow in the middle is the one that sometimes don't let us see very well. And then it comes the higher self. That is probably a conversation for future workshops, not for this one. But I think probably this helped you to see how they interact. The other thing is like, when you move your consciousness through the different parts of your psyche, to recognizing who you are and all the parts that are inside, you are also start moving your feelings, okay? From the shame, guilt, apathy that goes in the ego and the shadow, to the courage, acceptance, joy, and love that go in your soul and your real self and your higher self. So this, when you start understanding this, when you stop being ignorant of who you are, ignorant of your inner powers, of your purpose, of your fears, of the limiting beliefs, all the things that are inside your psyche, you start moving more things to your consciousness. Therefore, your energetic and your vibration is going to improve from the negativity that is in the world to the possibility that is in your soul and your heart. So I created this comparison of the characteristics of the three, the ego, the shadow, and the soul. So you have additional information to start recognizing them. So what are the characteristics of the ego? The ego is irrational and arrogant. It thinks it knows what he needs. It's always right. The ego lacks the capacity to listen to others' idea, to listen to other opinions. Is not humble at all. Is attached to things. Is addicted. Our addictions come from the ego a lot. Operates in linear time. Is believed there is a past and a future. As I said before, is related to thoughts, to thinking. It's judgmental. Like every time you're judging someone, something is ego. Its purpose is to be better than others. So every time there is competition, like in your life against your colleagues, or competitions in the fields, in sports, that's all related to ego. It wants to be better than the others because sometimes it feels less than the others. So it is continual fight is against others. His identity is false. He doesn't know what he is. It's materialistic. Believes that happiness is outside. As I said before, is the things that we can easily say about ourselves and our lives. When we brag about something, it's ego talking, and it's selfish as well. The shadow, on the contrary, is the things that we feel embarrassed about. We don't want to talk about it. Is hopeless. The shadow lies all the time. Is the victim. It's a child. It doesn't recognize its lack of self-esteem. And sometimes all the things that I'm saying here, the ego cannot recognize it. It's very, very, very shady. It is hidden behind the ego. So sometimes it's impossible for you to see that you're being a liar, to see that you're being a victim, to see that you don't love yourself. Recognizing that I don't love myself is something that you don't say out loud. It's hard to say. So you are unconscious most of the time of your shadow. You have to do the work for it to become conscious. Is related to the low frequency emotions. So most of the time the shadow is dancing with the low emotions are fear, anger, apathy, guilt, change, is where both the shadow and the ego dances. Its purpose is to not to let you act, to freeze you, so you take actions of your life to what you really want. It doesn't have any identity. It's projected in others when it's ignored. This is super important. The things, when we don't recognize our shadow, we see it on the other person. The things that you don't like about the other people and you haven't done shadow work is also part of you, is inside you. You cannot see things in other that are not inside you. For the shadow, happiness doesn't exist. And the shadow speaks to yourself and to your ego. Okay, it's not the conversations you have with the external world. And we have the soul. The soul says the truth, is the creator, is related to the high frequencies and emotions. It doesn't care about time. It sees beauty and value, the beauty or value that you really have. Project is beauty in others. Its purpose is beyond what society needs. It's authentic and unique. It trusts the universe and trusts itself. Doesn't judge and understand the pluralities of the world. That's the soul. So what is the conversation that the ego has, for example? The ego say things like, I have to do this so I can be happier or complete. If that person can make it, so I can make it too. It's all the time comparing itself with others. If that happened before, it's going to happen again. It has a fear of the future as well. Is the one who believes I know everything. Nobody knows everything. So it's very stupid to believe, to think that I know everything. I am better than, I am worse than other person. I want to have the same as this person. The others are wrong and I am right. I must succeed, otherwise I will feel miserable. Is looking for approval and for the idea of success that there is in this society. I need to make more money so I can. I cannot do it because this person is also blaming specific people for their faith. The feelings related to the ego are anger, the blame to others, specifically, I couldn't do that because this person is all the time justifying his actions, as so insecure of himself. Try to remind yourself why you did it, justifying, I did this because I needed that. That's ego conversation, totally, when you are trying to say why you did something, or I had to do this because this. And as I said before, it doesn't want to listen to others. It's stubborn, believes that knows everything. So to work on the ego, there are like different tools you can use. Affirmations is basically to change that negative thought against the world. Gratitude is important to work gratitude every day, so the ego loses its power. Meditation and yoga is important because it helps us to identify ourselves with other people, not to compare with them, but to understand that we are the same. Self-knowledge tools like astrology also helps to connect ourselves with the rest, with the universe. Nature, conscious contact with nature is very important also because it may cause, remind us that we are part of something bigger. So the ego dissolves when we are in nature, when we are consciously sharing with nature, when we understand nature, because we are part of it. We are not better than it, we're part of it. Okay. And for you to understand better the voices of the shadow, and this conversation you're having very deep with yourself, for example, I don't know who I am, I don't belong to this world. So as you start to see, the questioning of the shadow, the doubts of the shadow are deeper than simple, I have to do this, or I'm better than this person. And this is deeper than the relationship with the external world, is the relationship with ourselves. People won't listen to my message or buy something from me. I need to say this so they approve me. It's looking for approval. If I say this, they're gonna judge me. I have to do this even if I don't like it. It punishes ourselves. If I change this, they may like me. I won't tell because my idea will be stolen or criticized. It's also a lot of fear involved. If I study this or certify myself in this, they will believe in me. So it doesn't trust itself at all. I don't have a purpose. I don't want to disappoint my family, my spouse, my children. It's this deep conversation that is very tough to speak loud, but is there in our inner psyche and our conflicts. How does the shadow feel? Unworthiness, shame, guilt. The shadow feels that the universe is against us, or that nothing ever really works. So how we work in our shadow? As I said before, the shadow talks with feelings and emotions. So monitoring our triggers is key. It's not just let the triggers to come and go and not to see the triggers or hate being triggered, but for the contrary, embrace the trigger, because that's the way the shadow communicates with you, telling you there is pain that needs to be fixed. Shadow work is when you identify those triggers, you start identifying the moment when you first felt it, and to identify the reason you are feeling that pain. And when that becomes conscious, when you realize that is the truth, it dissolves and it doesn't manipulate you or control you anymore. Other way to work in the shadow is taking action. Everything that scares you, the things that you don't want to do, and the excuses you're making so you don't do something because you are incapable, because the world is against you, is the things you have to do. Taking action is a beautiful way to dissolve shadow, because you understand that whatever you thought was going to happen, whatever your ego invented that was going to happen, and at the end it didn't happen, is because it was a lie you were telling to yourself. So taking action is very important. And the other one is archetypal recognition, is understanding what are the main archetypes that rule your life. So you start to bring them from the shadow to the light, because sometimes what is happening is like we don't understand our archetypes, what is this energy we have in ourselves. So we don't know how to play with that energy to move it to the light and to empower ourselves. So recognizing what are the archetypes that for our personality, the things what we love, our purpose, our passions, we recognize them, we can take a lot of power out of there and be the best version of ourselves. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you today. Identify the ego shadow and soul, identify the voices, and then I'm gonna share with you 4 exercises or practice that you can do by your own. And is shadow work and even understanding our ego and our shadow. It works for all the aspects in our life. Okay, so I want you to do an exercise depending on where you are or what is that you want to work on. So for example, if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to start a new project, start a new service, start a new program, new trip, whatever, the idea of the exercise is you to think about that next project. What is you're going to do? What you're going to start doing? And start writing down all the things, all the thoughts, all the feelings, all the sensations that putting this project into reality makes you feel and makes you think. And then when you write it down, you identify the emotion that is in those thoughts. And then try to understand what is the voices that emotion brings. What is the emotion telling? If you feel fear, why is that you feeling fear? Trying to identify why that scares you and why that it scares you. Not only what, but why. And then try to have a conversation with yourself, identifying those limiting beliefs or those part of your shadow that is not letting you take action or preventing you to move forward from where you're wishing. And then after you list all of these thoughts, feelings, ideas, the voices of your shadow, change the conversation with yourself. Write down the new belief, the new idea, the new affirmation that you tell yourself. If you are in fear or something, change it. For the contrary, I'm encouraged, I'm excited, I want to do it. I'm trying to change that self-talk so you can start moving forward, regardless of whatever your ego or your shadow is saying to you, because this is what you really want to do. The other practice or exercise I want you to do is, for example, if you are looking for a partner or you want to have a new relationship, do the same exercise, but instead of thinking about a project, think about your next partner, the next relationship, and all the things that are like preventing you to be there, to find the person. What are you scared about or afraid of? What do you believe? Why you believe it's not going to happen? Or why are you afraid of falling in love? The same for leaders. I want for people that manage teams in companies to think what is the next project that your team needs to accomplish and do exactly the same exercise. And finally, also in our family relationships, if there is a relationship in particular that you are struggling with, whatever is your father, your sister, your spouse, etc., try to think about that relationship. What is the problem that you have? What haven't you done anything to improve it? Do you want to improve it? What are you so afraid of to improve that relationship? So whatever the aspect is that you are working right now in your life, do this exercise. Identify the voices, classify, do the work of rephrasing that inner conversation, the affirmation, and repeat it to yourself several times so you start eliminating those limiting beliefs that are holding you back. I think that's pretty much. I will gather if there are questions. I will gather the questions and probably do an additional workshop like this with the answers. I will answer well in my platforms. You can follow me in Facebook, Instagram. I have also my webpage as onelife2u.com. There is a lot of blogs in there. You can also find me in YouTube as Juli Tava. There is a lot of information. Most of it is still in Spanish, but I'm gonna start uploading more information in English. I think these tools to know yourself are very powerful. Is the first step to any change or transformation we want in our lives. However, there is always better to have another person helping you. So also you can reach out to me if you want to have a discovery call, so I can really help you to move faster through this change and this transformation and this growth that you are looking for, so you can start manifesting fasting whatever you want in your life. So that's pretty much. Thank you very much for your time, and see you around.